Frida La Hoya once received 100 grand for winning a Beyblade tournament, and that's because Frida La Hoya was the #1 ranked blader in the world. Until he wasn't. And he was replaced by Volta Oy, and sadly never got to see the #1 spot again. Now, with Volta Oy being the #1 ranked blader in the world, it got me to think how much, if anything, he gets paid for blading. So to me, it does seem like he has to get paid every time he participates in a tournament, especially if he has to defend his title as a champion. This video is sponsored by Mall of Toys. They offer the newest Beyblade Takeratami releases within the US and Canada. Just think about it though, if Volt got paid just the same as Free did, then he'd likely be a millionaire by now. Seriously though, I've wondered how much the top ranked bladers make ever since I started my theory videos. And now by reading almost all the mangas, and of course with help from my subscribers, I have found out how many times Volt has won, and by extension, gotten some of that sweet cash on hand. Needless to say, there will be spoilers for nearly every Beyblade season, so you've been warned. Okay, so you might think that there's no reason to start at the first season of Beyblade Burst, as Volt didn't even have a title until the end of the Evolution season. But I argue that when he lost to Louis in the finals, that's when he likely got his first $10,000. As with some sports title matches like the MMA, UFC, and even boxing, there are different tiers of payment. So at this stage in his blading career, Volta Oy is likely at the lowest tier for earning money. After Volt won the top ranked blader status in the Beyblade Burst Evolution finals against Shu though, that's when he gained more popularity and likely his first 100 grand in the bank. It's stated in the first episode of Beyblade Burst Turbo by Taiga Akabane that Volt faced and won versus many more bladers for 2 years straight before the start of the third season.
For the past 2 years, you've reigned as the undefeated Beyblade World Champion.
So, if we were to imagine Volt having to battle at least once a month, which is very likely, he would have won at least 24 times over those 2 years. And if he made 100 grand a match, plus the first $110,000 that he's made, he'd likely have about $2.5 million.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Nope. So if each title match was paid just the same as when Frida La Hoya won, Volta Oy, an 11-year-old kid at the time, would be chilling with a nice $2.5 million. But that's not all. If he had signed a contract with the WBBA just the same as UFC fighters do, he'd likely have twice that amount. Wait, what? Yep. He'd likely have a little bit over $5 million. And that's because when MMA fighters win a match, they're paid a guaranteed amount. In this case, that's the 100 grand plus a bonus that equals the guaranteed payout, essentially doubling the payment. Remember, in the Beyblade world, blading is a sport in itself, and with the amount of crowds in the tournaments and even local battles bringing along with any kind of endorsements, bladers are rolling in cash. But I will be conservative as to how much Volt has made in this video. But you could keep that in mind as we move along, as Volt is not done yet. We're not only in the beginning of the third season, where we get to see Volt defend his title against Kurt Bertier and Louis Shirosagi, although the latter match wasn't conclusive, as they ended up breaking the stadium. The referee had to stop the battle, so we'll say he only got 25 grand for participating, and so does Louis, I assume. That's because just like in sports title matches, in real life, both contenders receive a minimum payout just for participating. He then defends the title against Silas Carlisle. Then, as we all know, Volt loses the title to Iger Akabane. Now, Iger wasn't able to hold on to the title for long, as he lost it to Hyde. And so in the meantime, Volt upgrades his Beyblade to Turbo Valtryek. Now, I do want to point out Volt's humble side, because despite his newfound fame, power, and fortune, he's always been down to earth and generally a nice guy. Now that's something I really like about Volt. He remains polite and a positive person. He believes in his Beyblade and does whatever he can to help other bladers, even if he's lost to them before. Through training, battling, and upgrading his Beyblade, he teaches other bladers what it takes to be the champ. In this season, he also beats Frida La Hoya while training with his new Beyblade. And since he doesn't have the title, it doesn't really count as a defense. This doesn't last long though, as he regains his title back from Hyde, and he beats Kit Lopez's Air Knight a few episodes later. This brings his total money earned to $2.96 million. But the biggest surprise for me anyways, is that he still loses his title at the end of the Turbo season. Now, if you haven't seen the finale, I'll link the video in the description below. Now, I have my own theories as to why Volt lost to Iger in a previous video, and I'll link that for you as well in the description. But for the most part, I think that Vault let him win. Okay, so Vault may have lost a few times, and that's okay. He's still a top tier blader. Let's keep our focus for the next few seasons, as Vault is still making money. Okay, so Vault does not get the title back, as in the 4th season of Beyblade Burst, Iger was the reigning champ, which didn't last too long, as he lost his title to Arthur Peregrine and his Prime Apocalypse. I mean, Arthur was able to beat both Iger and Delta at the same time. It stands to reason that Arthur got to be the champ after defeating them right there and then, no? Well, not really, because in episode 50 of Beyblade Burst Rise, both Vault and Iger are referenced as being the 2 top bladers by a Hanabi. So once Arthur interrupted the match, it made the results of that battle void of a winner. That is until Arthur Peregrine beat him on a one-on-one in episode 15. Let me know what you think though, as this is one of the least favorite seasons for most Beyblade fans. Here, Vault only has a few Beyblade matches with fellow bladers, and towards the end with Iger and Dante. But the title was won back by Vault eventually. So as we move along to Beyblade Burst Surge, Vault starts off being the #1 ranked blader, along with Shu and Iger being the top 2 and 3 respectively. As referenced in the manga, Lane Valhalla and his extreme power were able to rank up all the way to the top 5 bladers in the world. He was even nicknamed the Legend Smasher. The first episode in the 5th season is basically when Vault introduced the Super King Beyblade system, and that's when he battles versus Rantaro and Silas, earning Vault another cool $100,000. And again, that's despite the results of the Beyblade battles. Now, this is when it starts to get a little murky or inconclusive for most Beyblade fans, as the show and the manga aren't exactly the same. We can safely assume that the next few battles versus the new protagonists, Hikaru and Hyuga, don't really matter in the beginning when it comes to a title match anyways. These matches are basically to help lower class bladers rank up, like in the 4th episode, when Vault faces off versus Hikaru. Vault then takes the Hisashi brothers and Rantaro to Spain, and by that I mean he likely paid for their plane tickets. That's about an $8,000 trip, guys. Yeah, I had to look that up. But I mean, what's 4 plane tickets if you have more than $3 million in the bank? So Vault faces Frida La Jolla and Hyuga alongside Hikaru, and this is another win for Vault, and likely the first time the Hisashi brothers actually got paid for blading, as it is in front of an audience. The next big matches are in the Legends Festival. This is a televised event, and I'm sure that all the bladers participating are earning money for each battle that they do. In the first battle royale, Vault doesn't win, but like I said before, he doesn't have to. Since he is the top ranked blader for the WBBA, I'll be assuming that he's still getting paid that $100,000 for every battle. Next up in the show are the tag battles, which are completely different in the manga, as Hikaru is actually able to take the #1 blader position and becomes a legendary blader himself. But anyways, Vault then participated in 2 more tag battles, add another $200,000 there. This brings us to the finals in the Legends Festival, where Vault is one of the 4 bladers who's made it through the competition. Vault defeats Hyuga in the first round, then gets defeated by Lane Valhalla. Now in the show, it could be said that this is when Lane Valhalla gets to be the top ranked blader after defeating Vault, but there's no mention of this, and it isn't really celebrated. But it could be the reason why everybody is so sad and surprised, and also why Vault looks so cryptic while talking to Hikaru and Hyuga after losing to Lane. Now, despite all that, this brings Vault's earnings to a staggering $3.96 million. I don't know about you, but at that point, I'd be happy just to be getting paid that much, or possibly more, just for blading. Vault then partners up with Shu for another battle versus the Hisashi brothers, which in my opinion is basically to entice Shu into participating in the Ultimate Tag Battle series. In this series, Vault racks up 6 more battles. But do they count? He's actually not defending his title as a top ranked blader since they're tag battles. But since it's a main event, he and likely the other bladers are still earning money. So that means that Vault may be up to $4.66 million by the end of the tag series at the end of the Beyblade Burst Surge season. Now, this takes us to the second last season of Beyblade Burst, where there are even more differences between the manga and the show. The biggest difference, in my opinion, is the fact that Rashad is stated to be the #1 ranked blader in the world from the beginning of the chapter. Whereas in the show, Rashad doesn't become the #1 blader until he beats Vault I think. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's keep counting Vault's cash flow in order to know how much Vault has earned so far through his Beyblade battles. That is, the ones organized by the WBBA, not the ones that he has for fun, or the ones that Gigi records and streams, as I think that Gigi is the one making money when he streams those battles, not Vault. So Vault gains his first quad drive check in episode 7 when he faces off against Bell in the Orbit Stadium, now at $4.76 million. Vault sets up the Great Aerial Tour with Wakia's help. Vault then has 3 more battles versus Bashara, Bell, and Ronzo. His next big battle is versus Rashad Goodman once he built his Glory Ragnar. Later in the season, Vault again participates in a triple tag battle, where he only participated in the Battle Royale. Then again versus Rashad, which is when I believe Rashad became a legendary Blader too, being considered as one of the strongest Bladers. The last of Vault's battles in this season are versus Bell and Rashad again in another Battle Royale, and then versus Rashad Goodman alone. This brings Vault to a mind-numbing
$5,560,000,
which may be yet another reason why he let Bell and Rashad battle themselves instead of versus him. If you want to see the last epic battles, I'll leave a link for them down in the description below again. Now, some people may be confused as to who is the champion by the end of the Beyblade Burst Quad Strike season. It's clear in the manga that Bell is crowned the #1 Blader in the world after defeating Vault, and in the anime, this isn't quite clear, and it may be something that we'll see in the next Quad Strike season, and I hope you'll be watching, just like this Beyblade Dad.
I love me so much!